Good day, everybody. It's exactly 2 o'clock on the 10th of August, 2025. It's Sunday. And while following the news, you probably all are very anxious on what's going to happen between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump on their meeting. We are all hanging on the edge of our seats, but there's probably not going to be anything earth-shattering. It looks like a lot of different mixed signals are going around. There's one, of course, the Zelensky signal. What Zelensky's gathering from it is, of course, far more interesting. But, there's like these fake news rumors and all kinds of stuff. They keep coming out, Reuters and whoever the heck puts this stuff out. And that some people are saying there was some sort of a misunderstanding between Witkoff and Putin. And Witkoff believed that Putin is going to give up Zaporozhye and Kherson for something else. I don't know. And, Donald Trump was saying something about a swap of territory. And then I have written in here somewhere something about this, some congressman or whatever, McFowle, saying something about Putin wants Alaska. I don't know if he's trying to allude to the fact that Donald Trump is going to trade Alaska back to Russia or something like that, or parts of Alaska. I don't know. Anyway, an interesting note on that is, I guess at some point in time, Russia made some agreement with the United States, and the U.S. bought Alaska. But the odd thing about that is, I hear that the United States never paid for it. They never paid Russia for it. So, anyway. And this McFowle sort of a deal, thinking that somehow it's going to have to do with, I don't know, maybe he means it's going to be traded for parts of Alaska or whatever. But that's not going to fly really either. That doesn't pass a smell test, because the original meeting was supposed to take place in Italy between Putin and Donald Trump. And it turns out the Hate Russia Club, I guess, as far as inside of the government, I don't know about if it's Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister, the leader of Italy, figurehead, head of state. I don't know if it's her or if it's somebody else or other people that, of course, were protesting about Vladimir Putin stepping foot in Italy. These people. If you look at it as an example, McFowle, this McFowle guy, or even a lot of these heads of state or whoever, I don't know, I'm not saying, they're, yes, heads of state in other countries of Europe, but as far as a lot of the people in the top of the government in Italy even, and it's, you start to realize that these people, you don't know if it is show. I don't think that it can possibly be all of these people doing all of this for show. I think a lot of them are just absolutely and incredibly stupid. Is it stupidity? Misinformed is one thing, but going over the course of a couple of years, you can start to see, some people are saying this, and you start to see some indications and start to connect the dots, and you find out that you've been stupid, and you kind of change your opinion a little bit. And it's like waking up, of course. So, and I guess it's happened to me as well. I mean, hey, I used to believe in most everything the government told me. I was in the military and all that. And Saddam Hussein, we got to get him, something like that. And I don't know. That was a long time ago. I haven't reassessed anything about Saddam Hussein, but it turns out it's probably nothing like what the government tells us. So nearly everything, they want you to be an enemy of certain people, so you'll put on maybe enlist in the military, pick up a gun and go kill other people. So that's what that's all about. Anyway, let's keep going here as far as what's going on. Zelensky and his friends in the EU, they're really scared of this meeting, obviously, and get into that why Zelensky is scared, and I guess he's got good reason to be scared. You guys have seen this building before. It looks like something that would be on a ship, like a huge control tower part of a ship with the captain up there sitting in the middle or something. Very weird architecture. So this is some tennis courts where a lot of beautiful girls normally go, and a lot of young girls, Epstein age type girls. I've seen some grown-up ladies inside there. It's a cinder court. If you see many of those anywhere around anymore, I guess look at this. I guess it's a rake for running around there, but it's Sunday, so not much going on here. You would think more people would be there on a Sunday. Okay, but so I guess what we'll say is that Donald Trump's statement of this land swap sort of a deal, in truth, it has no basis in any truth. And Zelensky, you know, he's of course scared and he's pissed off at the same time, and he's flexing his muscles, which he has his private gym down underground, obviously, and he started wearing his muscle shirts and things like that after the special military operation, grew a little bit of a beard, and maybe it's to let all the other Nazi buddies to say, look how tough I am. I don't know. Gym muscles, I guess you call it, because he's probably never done a day of work in his entire life, any real work, like me. So I have never even been to the gym, really, to be honest with you. A few times maybe back in junior high school. But let's see. And I'm not a big muscular guy anyway. So anyway, let's see. I was drawn to Zelensky and his attachment, I guess you would say, to the concept of gaining more land, or holding on to that land and gaining more, which is the real impetus behind Zelensky's thoughts, because it all came out, I guess, not that long ago. He was trying to make some historical some historical connection to that Ukraine owns like 1/4 of not only all of the Ukraine, but 1/4 of Russia. And if you look at real facts, Ukraine does not even own all of what Ukraine is. So, I mean, you don't even have to think about the gifting of parts of Moldova and all these, all these other areas like Moldova and parts of Russia, large parts of Russia, and they were gifted to Ukraine, all even in somewhat recent history. I mean, we're talking in this century. And the reality of Ukraine is it actually was a somewhat small area, not even a country. It was never really a country. Apparently in 1918, they had some sort of they were kind of like a country for a very short time. And maybe it's after the fall of the Soviet Union. But, the seeds of Nazism and hatred was already, hatred for fellow man was already heavily embedded in Ukraine. And so, that's what doomed them. It's very strange when you start to consider Nazism, and Nazism is like a self-defeating ideology. And I'll get into a little bit of that. I mean, it imploded with old Adolf, as we all know, and I don't know, a lot of people saying that Zionism, the Zio-Nazis under Netanyahu, is going to implode. And I guess he had Ariel Sharon. He was also a very evil person, and very, very heavily embedded into Nazism, wiping out, Palestinians and things like that. And Netanyahu tries to hide it just a little. I mean, he doesn't do a very good job of hiding it, as you all know. He tries to hide it a little bit. And Ariel Sharon, when he was in the military, I guess it was in Sabra and Shatila, I believe was the two towns, and they just massacred people. They lined them up on the wall, women, children, old people, and then just machine gunned them all to death. And so that's what Ariel Sharon was doing. Benjamin Netanyahu he's killing in a little bit more subtle way. And then, of course, he uses, we got to get Hamas. And everybody knows that Hamas was virtually a brainchild of Benjamin Netanyahu. He created Hamas. Hamas is his baby for the most part. He's nurtured it. I mean, you would think that he'd love Hamas. You know, he created something. It's like making a tool, like a sledgehammer, and then beating it to death, or like a stock car. You know, like you fix up a stock car. You know, they had these stock car races. You know, and these cars would, you know, beat each other. You know, and destroy each other. So you fix this car up in order to destroy it. Maybe that's how he looked at Hamas. I don't know, but that's Benjamin Netanyahu. But let's see. I was noticing, you know, in a lot of videos about the striking similarities between Ukraine and Israel, and put it in a lot of videos too. Only lately has Ukraine government officials been made to keep quiet about that they're proud Nazis, that they really admire, love Nazism. As you all know, towards the beginning of the special military operation, it was all exposed, and it was even more exposed, even many years before that. Nazi marches, swastikas, all of this stuff, and they just love the whole legacy of killing and killing and killing, believing themselves to be more superior than all other beings, especially Russians, of course. A lot of them have been brought up, and you have to have some common enemy. Adolf obviously used the Jews, and the Ukrainians used the Russians. You know, that's kind of weird. Adolf, was trying to drive a lot of the Jews out, and some of those could stay if they, wear the armband, of course, and be subservient, whatever. They were Jewish military units, and I don't really know for sure what life was like there. And of course, they had these concentration camps, and a lot of that is, of course, at least in a lot of cases, it's wasn't as bad as what they say it is. I'm saying in a lot of cases, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure, because as you see, there's a lot of misinformation coming out of Israel. Lies and lies and lies, and saying how much they love these Gazan people, and they give them so much food and all the. Anyway, Benjamin Netanyahu, he could, like I said yesterday, if I have a used car lot, I want him as the salesman. He'd probably make a lot of calls and say a junker is maybe it was driven by George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or something like that. And they really had cars that went back in time in history. And anyway, he could probably convince people. But anyway, so now they're keeping quiet about their love of Nazism, and a lot of the West is trying to use, who was it? When you turn the video on, and thinking about one subject, you forget about the other subjects. So what was it? Who is this guy that is the ambassador to Great Britain for Ukraine? Anyway, they think about like replacing Zelensky with that guy. It's not Syrski. Whoever was the guy in charge of the military before Zelensky got jealous and scared and got rid of him and didn't get rid of him in that way. They didn't want to martyr him, so they sent him to become the ambassador to Great Britain. And, I guess that's a very useful place, because it turns out, and it's been now very well proven, but it's like that they are the biggest supporters of Ukraine. They're the ones that are doing the most to kill civilians. Giving them the targets and target acquisition is what they call it. And a lot of the worst weapons and all of this. And the British, and who knows why, but they have this tremendous, even far, far more than, say, Lindsey Graham or any of these people. They have this seething hatred of Russians. And I've met British people, that were had lots and lots and lots of money, and maybe I guess they have connections to the government. And I, couldn't understand it myself, because I talked to them. And they really hate. He really hated the Russians too. Strange, when he knew some, and somehow maybe was forced together with some. Oh, they're okay, but all the other Russians, it's incredible. I don't know. You'd think that like rich people, or politicians and all that, would be smarter than the rest of us, but they're not. They're certainly not. You see way too many mistakes. And I mean, I don't even have to tell everybody, all of you that are watching this, you already know there's way too many examples. But there's a lot of people, maybe those are the really naive people thinking that rich people are smarter than the rest of us. So that tells you, like even Bill Gates, he thinks that he's smarter than all of us anyway. And so many people do that. Donald Trump, that's pretty obvious. But, he sometimes listens to people and thinks that maybe even us mortals have maybe some good ideas as well. I have no idea. Donald Trump's kind of an enigma anyway. And it's just like Lukashenko said just a couple of days ago, that he has one opinion in the morning and he might have the completely opposite opinion in the evening and do something completely haywire. You never know. Says one thing and does another, and anyway, as you know, that's what I keep saying. Donald Trump is a very unstable person, and that's I said yesterday I was comparing Lukashenko with Donald Trump, and both of them are strong men, and both of them have a authoritarian streak in them, of course, and but the difference is that, like I said, you look up in the dictionary under stability and there's a picture of Lukashenko looking at you. And if you look up the definition of instability, there's a picture of Donald Trump looking at you. So, but Lukashenko said he was more in favor of Donald Trump than he was of Biden. And he there's a lot of elements of Donald Trump that he really likes, but he was critical of him, and he says that he's I guess how it translated, what I was watching was that Trump is a blabbermouth. That Lukashenko said that. So I guess you can't really deny it. I think what he's meaning is that Donald Trump talks way too much to the press, and maybe that's one reason why I can't seem to ever do a video without having the main topic being Donald Trump, because he's out there, he never shuts up. But let's keep going. I was here to talk more about this Nazism and all that. So let's see. Yes, the Nazis used to be very proud Nazis in Ukraine, and the Israelis, they deny that they're Nazis, even though they do everything, absolutely everything, down to the letter of what Adolf Hitler was doing. There is you can't see any light in between Benjamin Netanyahu and Adolf Hitler. You can draw parallels all over the place between those two. So you have except one calls himself a Nazi and the other one doesn't. But, the Zion-Nazis. And if you look at real facts, you can find a lot of things that that Benjamin Netanyahu, he's far beyond Adolf Hitler in cruelty and killing. I don't think Adolf Hitler would purposefully go bomb apartment buildings and kill children. They did killed enough civilians, and of course a lot of their henchmen, which of course were the Ukrainians, and of course you had the Baltic states and all that. They all helped Adolf Hitler to do a lot of killings, mostly a lot of killings. They killed, I don't know, is it millions in Belarus? Anyway, definitely, well, it is millions. They killed millions in Belarus, millions of people. The larger percentage of population in Belarus was killed more than any country on earth in World War II. That includes Japan or Germany. So it was wiped out. It was a real attempt at genocide. So they're even calling that a genocide here, that they were trying to do that. They wiped out over 200 villages and killed everybody in 200 villages. And most of the killing was done, of course, by the Banderites from Ukraine, because you got to look back, and they had these Nazis even back then. And I think that, maybe with the defeat of Nazism, it was kind of gone for a while, but of course they were always there. And then they got stronger and stronger, and of course now the U.S. used them, and now they control the entire government of Ukraine, and they're used as a battering ram to go after Russia. They're called the anti-Russia. So as everybody knows, they wanted to create an anti-Russia, and now that it is faltering, you see Moldova, Maya Sandu, and even the people in Moldova are noticing this, and they are protesting. They do not want to be an anti-Russia. They don't want to be the next up. And a lot in Poland are saying that too. And a lot of these strange countries, they are perfectly willing. They want to go and, be the anti-Russia. They want to go get themselves killed, I guess, with Russia, against Russia. And, there's Finland, and there's enough of them. And, it's too bad. Maybe, you get rid of some of the rules in the world, and then you say, okay, well, bring it on. Let's do it. And then just see how anxious they are. I don't know. Well, Poland is trying to build this huge military. I think, did I mention that yesterday? I had it in my notes. They want to create another 300,000 soldiers and to be the most powerful military in all of Europe. And obviously they want to use it against Russia. That is the entire goal, is to make Poland the new Ukraine. And just think, as more and more people start to figure that out in Poland, I think a lot of them are going to be a little bit upset about it. I don't know if they have such strong roots in Nazism as the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians were big Nazis for a long time, and for a large part, as you all know, the Poles were victims of Nazism. But maybe they're going to try to do a switcheroo so that they can't notice that they're actually Nazis. It's just like in Israel, The people there don't realize that they are Nazis. They are Zio-Nazis. There is no difference between them and the whole ideology and like I said, as a matter of fact, they're even worse. They're much worse, because they got the entire society wanting the genocide of Palestinians, maybe all Arab peoples, and they want Eretz Israel to gather more territory, but that's what I'm going to be getting at here. Eretz Israel. So let's keep going. I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's one of the big indicators of Nazism is land acquisition, regardless of whomsoever lives on that land, whether they've lived there for thousands of years or whatever. They want to cleanse the land. I guess you call it ethnic cleansing. Some of the people obviously have to be left. Like I'm sure Donald Trump says some can stay there in Gaza as long as they cough up a huge amount of money. Those that don't have money and they refuse to leave, they'll be living in tents by the sewage treatment plant, having to smell that, have their kids grow up like that. But they'll need somebody to clean the bed sheets of all the luxury rooms and all that sort of thing. So that's why they're, some are, invited to stay there. And he's going to be a very generous guy. He and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. So, like I said, Baltics, Ukraine, very helpful. Even Finland. It's very strange that all the ones that hate Russia so much now are are some of the big haters back from World War II. But just like, is this inherited, And Finland, of course, was defeated, and Russia said, you can stay, It was actually part of Russia. And they said, you can have independence, but you have to pledge to be neutral. And obviously the Finns jumped on that, but now they've decided they want to go against Russia. They could have, they were neutral. They could have had nothing to do with Russia or a lot to do with Russia, but now they want to destroy Russia. It's like, that's really interesting. Makes you really wonder the power of persuasion. It really makes you wonder who is the one that persuaded these people. It's like you have to ask, well, what's the reward? What is the reward? Large sums of money, comfort for the rest of your life, some millions of dollars. A lot of people will do a lot of things. And I was talking about compromising with this Pashinyan, whatever he did. He sold out Armenia big time. A lot of people are looking that this is going to be a real disaster into the future with the South Caucasus. And right before that, Ursula von der Leyen, supposedly, she signed over everything to the United States, to Donald Trump, basically, with tariffs and all that. Basically, she got down on her knees and, the old circus seal sort of a deal. Okay, but anyway, all these Nazis, they don't care about getting rid of all these people from their ancestral lands. What is this over here? Is this a coffee shop or something? People? I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of I don't know. I don't even want to look it up. So separate these people from their ancestral lands. And, you know, I already talked about Belarus. Extermination plan of Palestine. Parts, you know, they're trying to create Eretz Israel, as you guys know. And I don't know if anybody will say, oh, that's not true. But of course it's true. They're bombing southern Lebanon, and somehow the government there is convinced, and there's big protests in Lebanon as well, and in Beirut, you know, because they're trying to disarm Hezbollah, which will invite Israel to come and do whatever they want. They, you know, of course, they're going to take over southern Lebanon all the way to the Litani River, and of course gain control of the Litani River. It's actually going to be beyond the Litani River. And if there is really any truth in that supposition that Israeli flag, you know, the two blue stripes, there's one on the top and one on the bottom, if that represents rivers, and the northern one, I guess, being the Litani River, you can see that that blue stripe, it is not at the very top of the Israeli flag. There's some white on the other side of it as well. So there's white in the middle with the Star of David, and then there's the blue stripes, you know, one on the top, and then some white on each side of it. So in other words, if that is to represent a river, that means they control the banks of both sides of that river. You know, so it's like, that is very strange. Makes you wonder what the plan is going to be. So let's see. But this extermination plan was underway already by Ukraine, is what I'm talking about, in East Ukraine. And as you know, the Western Ukrainian people, they were killing the people in Eastern Ukraine. And they had the Minsk agreements that Vladimir Putin was saying that those regions, I think at that time it was just Lugansk and Donetsk, they're supposed to have autonomous, and they, you know, that they won't be trying to force these people to stop speaking Russian and all the other things they were trying to force those people to do, and let them have autonomy, and they will stay a part of Ukraine. And but at that time, the Crimea already voted, like, what, 96% to be part of Russia. And I remember long ago, we're talking many decades ago, when I was just a small child, I remember seeing on television protests of the people in Crimea. They were protesting at the Russian naval base, and it was the strangest protest you can ever see. They did not want to be a part of the Ukraine. They were protesting, the soldiers, because they wanted to be a part of Russia. And there were hundreds of them, and it was kind of like it wasn't a violent protest. They were just like pushing. It was like, like pushing with their body, not even with their arms. And it's like, what is going on here? That's the strangest protest I've ever seen. Nobody throwing anything, nobody getting beat, nothing like that, like in Paris or something, which they seems to have every week or something. And in the West, you know, lots of these protests, of course, you don't see those. They only show you the ones when they're in the West or in the East. But yeah, but those were strange protests. And it's very odd that they even showed them on Western news. And I got kind of confused, or maybe I don't even know where I saw that anymore. Maybe it was in the university. But of course, you're not supposed to know about that these people did not want to be ever a part of Ukraine. And of course, it's the same thing with Lugansk and Donetsk. Even since the time that Vladimir Lenin gifted, very important word, gifted that area to Ukraine when it was part of Russia. And because because I guess Ukraine was very unproductive. The real Ukraine was very unproductive. It didn't bring any money, didn't do anything, and they wanted to get some jobs and make, you know, life better for those people over there. So they were giving them these areas that were highly productive, where the mines are at. As you know, Donald Trump making his deals, he wants to get the rare earths over there, and that's all in the part that Russia controls for the most part. That's in those Russian areas. So anyhow, but it's just like the other areas, like Crimea, that was gifted in 1954 by Khrushchev. Some people say he was drunk, playing cards or something with some people, and his wife kind of wanted that. And yeah, so he said, well, yeah, go ahead, we'll just make it part of Ukraine. and his wife, I guess, was Ukrainian, and maybe he was Ukrainian. I'm not even positive anymore. Anyway, it's mostly all of the leaders of the Soviet Union in history were all pro-Ukraine. And a lot of the stuff that you hear from Ukraine, oh, they hated us, oh, they ripped us off, oh, la, 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 la. It's exactly the opposite, exactly the opposite. They were the spoiled stepchild. They were, they were spoiled rotten, you know. And it took so much resources, because I'll tell you what, and I heard this, and you guys, you can find some other maybe older people that knows what it was like in the Soviet Union at that time, because look, they're all around me here, and I, you know, but they were heavily corrupt back in those days. So a lot of the money that was going to Ukraine, it like, bam, it disappeared. And you get a lot of rich people, and of course, coming up, you know, through Ukraine. And as I told you, I think it was just a day or so ago that Diane Panchenko, she was rated the best journalist in Ukraine and fell foul of course, Zelensky. So she is on the run, and they want to kill her and all that. Young, you know, very attractive girl. She even interviewed Lukashenko at one point in time. And now they dropped her from YouTube. They banned her channel, you know, and she's reporting a lot of very bad, I mean, very, it's just like the most amount of Rolls Royce that are ordered if anywhere in the world are going to Ukraine. They order more Rolls Royces in Ukraine than all of Europe combined. So the Ukrainians must have a lot of money to get the luxury models of the Rolls Royce. I have to add that. The most expensive models, they're going to Ukraine. So how do they get all that money? I thought, and they're begging for billions of dollars, so why do they need to, so how do they get those well, Mercedes and probably all that too. Anyway, but that's besides the point. I want to make sure I get everything done here. Let's see. So anyway, Ukraine was killing all those people, trying to ethnically cleanse that land. It's just like Adolf Hitler. He wanted Lebensraum. That was the main thing. When I took the university, a class, they said that the one thing that everyone agrees on, and is a very well-established fact about Adolf Hitler, and of course, I have to add that Germany was my specialty, but it was more in the older Germany. But I, you know, also was fascinated, very fascinated, of course, with the World War II stuff and all that, and had a very famous professor, John Bridgman. You'll even find, there's even probably some videos on him. His name is spelled Jon, last name Bridgman, and very famous professor at the University of Washington. He was knighted by the Queen of England, and he I don't know, he was awarded by JFK, John F. Kennedy, and Richard Nixon and all that sort of thing, but he died some years ago. Anyway, you know, I got along with him. I didn't know him so well because he's so energetic. He only wants to read and study most all of the time. And his wife, you know, his wife was a counselor, and she said she can't keep up with him either. He's always doing something. He's always active. If he's not doing studying and pouring through books and all that, you know, preparing for his lectures, he was like out mowing the lawn or something like that. Very energetic guy. He didn't have time to sit around and chit chat except for when he did lectures. He didn't write any books, really. I think maybe he did something maybe about the Hottentot tribes in Africa or something like that, you know. But he specialized in Europe in that time period, I guess, from maybe 1914 to 1945 and all that, which of course was mainly about Germany. But he had other, you know, history. I mean, the guy was very, very knowledgeable. But anyway, it's not about him anyway. We're talking about this other stuff here, Ukraine. Okay. Anyway, they killed like 14,000 of those people, of ethnic Russians, trying to cleanse the land, of course. And it's just like Adolf Hitler was doing, you know, in Belarus and elsewhere, just exactly like Netanyahu is doing, trying to cleanse Gaza. And there's a lot of controversy in there right now, which is not really controversy at all, because some of them are saying we have to take the entirety of Gaza, and Benjamin Netanyahu is saying they're going to take Gaza City and all this. And you know they're going to take all of Gaza. But what they're going to obviously do, you know, because there's a lot of Palestinians living there, it's going to be a slow process. And those damn Palestinians, they have too many babies and things like that. That's actually the biggest problem. And what they don't like about the Palestinians is they have a lot of children. You know, and that's why it was so possible to kill tens of thousands of children, I guess, in the past 2 years of bombing the place. And I have to say one thing. It's not positive necessarily or negative of any group of people. And I know that it's a very strange thing. And it's not like there's a minority government that rules over all minorities it's not even minorities or immigrating people in the world, but it's a fact that, like, even in what is exactly what is happening in Spain, a lot of the people, when they get together, because I've heard of people, that they thought that these people were sympathetic to their cause because they were foreigners as well, but it's like thing like that's passed on from mouth to mouth, that a lot of these minorities say, because it's their weapon, because they can't go against governments or racist people or anything, but they say, and this is obviously true, and you guys can all see this, like maybe even true in Sweden and everywhere, but they say they're going to breed the people into a minority. So these immigrants that come to these places, it's very sad to say this, because I'm not against any people or nothing like that really, but it is a negative part, I guess, of migrants, is they get in, and when they have at least a substantial number, they say they're going to breed the native population into minorities, so they're going to take over. Obviously that is going on in England, and it's way too far gone already. There are so many places. There are towns and cities in England where the British people are a very small minority, and all of the rest are from Africa and the Middle East, and there is no way of changing that. And it's one thing to go and to respect the culture of a country, and a lot of people from India, they did do that when they came to Great Britain and all that, obviously. And but other people's, I don't know. A lot of people, they're disgusted. Makes you wonder, why do you go to this country if you are disgusted with their culture and their history? I don't know. The United States, they have a strange culture, and I think even a lot of these people there that are flooding into the United States, they're not necessarily against the United States, so it's probably a little bit different, because the United States is a mishmash of, modern stuff, and everybody says, oh, what a great place, the United States, oh, I want to go to the United States, New York, all this sort of stuff, but it's much different in Europe. I'm just saying. So, okay. Anyway, Lebensraum, Eretz Israel, and Eretz Ukraina, Slava Ukraina. And I was mentioning Zelensky at one time, and I remember this. He was putting out something, and he said that Ukraine has a right to, like, Krasnodar and huge areas of Russia. And he said that is Ukrainian. That's I think he even said our people, which it's not. Even the Donetsk and the Lugansk are not his people. They're not even Ukrainian. Those are Russians. They are ethnic Russians. Crimea, ethnic Russians. Odessa, ethnic Russians. And if you want to even get a little bit more technical about it, like I've said at one point in time, the first people in the world that were called Russians were people from Kiev. That is where the term was first used. Kievan Rus. And they were called Russians. And that was the first capital of Russia, was Kiev. And the word Ukraine means on the edge, which means on the edge of the Russian Empire. In other words, they are Russians. Basically, they're Russians. And the region of Ukraine, like I was always saying, is maybe Lvov and those sort of areas. Beautiful town. It's just too bad over time you get this ideology. And the United States did that in Chechnya. They do that all over the place. As a matter of fact, it has happened even here. It's even happening now. A lot of this stuff is in Belarus, and they think that they hate the government. They hate Lukashenko. It's like, well, what did Lukashenko do bad? Is this such a terrible place as Belarus? Oh, yes, you don't know. And he goes, oh, it's bad. And I said, well, tell me how it's bad. Nobody can tell me how it's bad in Belarus. Oh, yeah. It's just like I said when I was in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and everybody's talking about the cruel and the vicious Assad, the leader of Syria, how bad he is. Oh, he's so bad. And I was always telling it. Some were Lebanese and some were Syrian. I said, well, what did he do? What is he? Well, he's bad. And well, you know, bad people do bad things. Tell me, what did he do that's bad? Well, he's a bad guy. And it's, you know, what? Let me explain to me. Well, what did he do? Did he massacre a bunch of people? Well, he's a bad guy. You know, and they can't even use that time when it was supposedly gassing his own people. You know, because that was a plant. It was the white helmets were involved in that. And it wasn't even a deadly gas, and then you see them treating them, and nobody's wearing masks or any protective anything whatsoever when they're pouring water through the children's eyes in the films and all that kind of stuff. In other words, it was a big fake. And one thing I didn't mention yesterday, I was talking about Lukashenko did this interview, and apparently this guy that was interviewing Lukashenko was not pro-Belarus. He was anti-Belarus for the most part. And the guy was trying to say how Russia was killing those people in Bucha. And Lukashenko, you know, you just have to look at what he said. It's undeniable. And the guy said, I saw the atrocity. Well, did you see the atrocities or do you see the bodies? Well, I saw the bodies. It's like, it's I don't know. It's kind of like it's like a lesson in how stupid people can be. You didn't see the Russians killing anybody. And Lukashenko, the deal is, they had people photographing, apparently, the people that were coming in and doing the killing. And Belarus, and Lukashenko had said in this interview, maybe it was at a different topic, part of that interview, that he would like to meet Trump and he would like to tell Trump a lot of things. And I guess maybe they have a lot of evidence as well. There's some pretty good intelligence gathering people maybe in Belarus, or maybe they got some good connections in different places, especially in Ukraine. But anyway, they have the information that it was Ukraine, and obviously it was the Ukraine police. It was not like the Ukraine military. It wasn't the SBU. It was the Ukrainian police that were mostly doing that, because they're a branch of the SBU, which is part of the intelligence network of Ukraine. And they actually, apparently, did kill a lot of people. Anybody that took aid, you know, there was these boxes that the Russians were giving out, you know, for food aid, for people to help them out, you know, because it's war place, you know, and you can't just work like you used to work, get your paycheck, go to the store. So they were giving some food out to a lot of people. And anybody, you know, that took this food, the Ukrainians killed them afterwards. When Russia gave that area up as a sign of, you know, it's as a gesture, because they were just about ready to sign this peace, and they said, okay, as a nice gesture, we'll give this area up. It was right before Boris Johnson flew into Ukraine and canceled it all. So what they did is they killed everybody that accepted Russian food aid, and anyway, so they killed a lot of people. And when the Ukrainians came in, it was many, many days later. And Scott Ritter was even making a comment on that. And he said those bodies would have been stinking like you would never believe. And then, but they didn't, you know, and they would have been bloated up. He said that's what dead bodies do. You know, after some days they bloat up. And those bodies weren't bloated up, so they were recent kills. And as a matter of fact, there's film footage when they have these trucks going down the streets, you know, with bodies laying around on the sides. Some of the bodies sat up. You know, and then there was they showed a truckload with a whole bunch of big plastic bags, supposedly with bodies. There's a whole bunch of bodies in these plastic bags, and they had a hand coming out of one of these plastic bags and smoking a cigarette. So that's really weird. I mean, you know, so I guess dead man smoking. I don't know. And I saw that film footage, you know, and it's like, well, how did they do that, you know? But anyway, so that was just part of that interview. So let's get back to the topic here, which is the Nazis. Okay. Anyway, it was the failure to implement the peace accords is why Russia started that special military operation in February 24th, 2022. Anyway. So anyway, I was over here when that started, when the special military operation started. So let's see. But obviously, What was Ukraine doing? They were killing their own people. Very strange, you know? Assad killing his own people. All these people killing their own people. But what about when Zelensky was killing his own people? Those areas, Donetsk and Lugansk, were still part of Ukraine after 1914 or 2014 until the special military operation in 2022. So why in the heck was Zelensky killing his own people? And where was the press? How come the press did not talk about that? Zelensky, it was actually Poroshenko and then Zelensky, of course, both killing their own people. Oh, because that's what Nazis do, I guess. So, and the reason why Zelensky did not take that deal where he would have kept Donetsk and Lugansk is because he wanted Crimea. You know, he said, no deal. And well, that was his part of it. And of course, Boris Johnson, they were ready to sign that. Because I think obviously Zelensky knew he was losing, but of course they had the special backing. Boris Johnson said, we got your back, we're going to flood you with even more weapons. You know, we built your military as it is now by flooding you with weapons, training all your people in order to attack Russia, and you know, we're in it till the end now, you know. So that's what that was all about, till the last Ukrainian. And as I already told you, Crimea never wanted to be a part of Ukraine. So, the major goal after they would get maybe Crimea, which they thought they did because they already had, like I said, Lugansk and Donetsk. Then, of course, they were going to start going after the other areas, maybe that adjoins to the Crimea, which is the Krasnodar region. So they were going to start moving into the south. That's what Nazis do, you know. Eratz, Ukraine. Let's see. And there's kind of a big social type issue that is something that's worth noting. It's the Nazis, if you notice, not only in Ukraine or in Israel or Adolf Hitler with his brown shirts and Zelensky with his green shirts, and who knows what the shirts are in Israel. But anyway, these people, they disrespect the people's connection to their birthland. They disrespect, of course, the Palestinians, you know, the fact that they lived there for thousands of years. And the Nazis, of course, were, you know, like what they did with the Belarusians or Poles or anybody. And it's no different than the Ukrainians. Nazis from the West, they want to ethnically cleanse that area, as I said, of Eastern Europe. And there's one part of Russian ideology which is, it's not unique, but it's very strong. And you've heard Lavrov say it, you've heard Putin say it, I've even repeated that here, you know, that the United States and the West, they go to war for resources, money, and Russia goes to war for people. And if you hear from now on, after I'm going to tell you this, you can always find these hints that the Russians, they see the people as inseparable from their land, from the land that they were born in, that they were raised in, and their ancestors come from. But the Nazis, they don't have that. Not only the Nazis, even the Americans, you know, I mean, it's part of the heritage. And I'm not saying that Americans are Nazis, but but we don't have that strong feeling that these people, that in a sense, that is their land. Even maybe they never bought it, maybe they're homeless, I don't know, but that is their land, and the people are inseparable from their land. So that's part of Russian ideology, and it's, in fact, maybe it is Eastern Slavic. Maybe it's all Slavic ideology. It's an ideology from a lot of people. The Palestinians are no different. That's why they don't leave. That's why, under all the suffering and whatever, that they're getting bombed, their houses, they've rebuilt their houses 3 times over. Israel keeps bombing and killing their children, and they never leave. They feel that they are part of the land, and the land is part of them. So, but the Nazis, obviously, they want to separate the people from their land. So that is, I guess, how you tell a Nazi from people that are not Nazis, is they want to ethnically cleanse areas, obviously. That seems to be a common thread, anyway. Bill Gates, he buys up farmland. BlackRock, they bought up a lot of land in Ukraine, and that's kind of I don't know, strange indication too. I'm not saying that these are Nazis, but maybe they're tending to go in that direction. And McFaul, what I was saying about Alaska, that Putin wants it back, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, after Trump was talking about this land swap, Zelensky, of course, he messaged all of his buddies in the EU, to gang up and to get this huge thing. Basically it's to scare Donald Trump, because they're definitely not going to scare Putin. Putin is used to this stuff. Everybody ganging up on him, the We Hate Russia Club, and but I don't know. Donald Trump is supposed to get scared because Zelensky, he furiously was writing to all of them and to say, we ain't gonna take it, and we want this land that throughout all of history was Russian, but we want to take it because we had it for a very short period of time, and so we have a right to kill those people on that land, ethnically cleanse them, and spread it out for Lebensraum, for the superior Ukrainian people that some reason have the same identical blood as the Russians. We can't figure that one out, but we'll work on that as we have all of these laboratories, genetic laboratories in Ukraine. Thanks to the United States, we'll find a difference one day to show that we are the master race, and the damn Russians, we got to kill them all. So, anyway, well, maybe he didn't say that, but that's probably what he means anyway. But anyhow, what did he say? Oh, there was a quote from Zelensky. He said, Ukrainians, which means Zelensky and his Nazis, not Ukrainians, Ukrainians. So, me and my other Nazis will not gift their land to the occupier. And as I said, this land has, for the most of its history, and the people are Russian. So, and then it makes you wonder, let's see, well, what happened? Well, who is really the occupier? Who overthrew the democratically elected government by the Ukrainian people in 2014? Well, it was the friggin' Nazis. It was the United States and George Soros, and all of this. And they overthrew the government with the coup, the Maidan coup. And so who is the occupiers here? This sounds like it's Zelensky's party. So they're the occupiers. So maybe the Ukrainian people, and not the Nazi Ukrainian people, should stand up and say, we're not going to gift our land to the Nazis. And of course, Zelensky probably feels that he owns that land. He and the other Nazis own that land. Sell it to BlackRock, which is exactly what he did to a lot of that land, even though it was not his to sell. It belonged to somebody. How did BlackRock get a hold of it? Do you think all those people decided to sign over to I don't. Anyway, which is a lot of the land in Ukraine. Think about that. Yeah, gifting that land. But wait a minute, at the very beginning, all that land was gifted to Ukraine by the Russians. And back in those days, what people tell me here, it was the Soviet Union, and it was like one country. So people, they weren't that concerned. It's like, my region, because it was all under the same governance anyway. So there's nothing going to change if that belonged to Ukraine or it belonged to Russia. As a matter of fact, maybe they were better off as part of Ukraine because Ukraine got all the money. So many people were working very hard, and a lot of that money, they went to places like Riga and Kiev and all that. So they had the benefit. Or Kaya Kallas and her family, those people were living in the lap of luxury when all the rest of the people were having a very hard time. So let's see. Blah 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 blah. Let's see. And it makes you also, another element to this is, do you really think that those people that he says Ukrainians, which doesn't mean Ukrainians, which means him and his Nazis, because the Ukrainian people, maybe if you were to ask them, and a lot of people, you find out later that they really don't really want to be part of what is known as the most corrupt government on planet Earth. The most corrupt government. you know, very expensive, and have your kids get run down in the streets, thrown into a van, all of a sudden, bam, they're gone, they're disappeared. And then, I don't know, maybe somebody saw them get thrown into a van, and you find out that they're being used as cannon fodder against Russian artillery and going to be dying on the front. You know, especially if you have any sympathy towards the Russians, obviously those are the first ones that are going to go. They go to the areas that was part of the land that was gifted from, you know, I guess Stalin gifted a part of Hungary and gave it to Ukraine. So that's one of the biggest recruiting grounds, is where Zelensky sends his goons to collect people to have them die against Russian artillery. You know, and I mentioned already a couple of videos ago about some guy that they beat him to a pulp until he died, and he was a Hungarian. I don't think he was even ethnically, he was actually a real, with passport and everything, a Hungarian, and they beat him to a pulp and killed him. Zelensky's goons, and a lot of times they beat some people so bad that they're not really that fit. They have to go to the hospital to recover before they can be sent to the front lines, because maybe they cannot walk or something. There's more amputees in Ukraine than any country on earth, by the way. Look at this big mushroom there. Some people are big into mushrooms. That one's just waiting to get taken up and eaten. Maybe it's poisonous. I have not a faintest idea. I don't know. Somehow I have some kind of thing in my head that I don't want to eat fungus. So something that grows on dog manure, probably some place where a dog did his business right there, and then you're going to eat that. You know, that's growing out of the dog's droppings. Okay. Anyway, I was trying to get to the fact that Zelensky, he has a right to be scared, I guess, you know. I don't know. So, another thing about these Western leaders, Zelensky, you know, he marshaled them all up, I don't know. Yes, we're on the side of Ukraine, Ukraine forever, to the last Ukrainian. And all these world leaders, they have another thing that they're all going for. You know, they're talking about a Ukrainian, a Palestinian state. But doggone, the dog is still gone, I guess. Too bad. About a Palestinian state. And of course, I'm in favor of that. And all of these leaders that are talking, they're not necessarily in favor of it. They're in favor of power and all that. You guys all know that. So this is nothing but a show. And they know that it's not going to fly anyway. It is actually maybe to keep their people calmed down to a certain extent at least, because there are protests, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people protesting about all of this. Look at this. Somebody made a place for a squirrel. Squirrel! If you can see that. Wait a minute. What am I doing? Let me go this way. I don't think the squirrel needs the ladder. I think they can go up the pole, to be honest with you. Unless that's for midget people. They're aliens. Midget aliens. I don't know. And where are they supposed to fit through? That little hole? There's not a door here. Makes you wonder, what is this all about? It's only the size of a bird. I don't know what the heck that ladder is for, to be honest with you. Maybe it's for the corn on the outside for the squirrels. I don't know. Here's one that looks like it's for birds. I don't know how I get that impression, but that's for birds, I'll bet. It's like somebody likes little critters here. Oh look, they got some walnuts and nobody's eating them. I guess that is for the squirrels. Anyway, I guess they have a wood shop. This is a school, by the way. I think it's a music school. I don't know how. Something tells me, but I don't really know how I get this impression that that is a music school. Maybe some of you can help me. I don't know. I get that impression. But let me keep going here. So these people are saying, oh, if some kind of peace agreement isn't done by a certain time, they're going to, maybe by September, they're going to recognize a Palestinian state in September. And Benjamin Netanyahu, he's probably acting like he's really scared and angry and all that sort of a thing, and threats. And Donald Trump said he's because Donald Trump does not want a Palestinian state. Donald Trump, apparently he hates the Arabs, he hates the Muslims, that sort of a deal. So I mean, you think that the Arabs will all look at that because they'd like to see a Palestinian state, but they got to play like they're stupid. And I don't know, all they ever do is talk anyway. Everybody talks about that Arab League and all that. They could get together and have a lot of power, and but obviously it's going to be them against the U.S. and Israel, because the U.S. apparently they want to steal all the oil and stuff, but they have no sympathy whatsoever towards, I don't know, Muslims in general or Arabs or both. I don't really know, one of the two or both. And they love Israel, and because, I don't know, we can make videos about that, and I've talked about it for many times. Israel basically runs the United States whenever they feel like it, in most all ways. Actually, if you think about it, that's very, very, very simple for them just to turn the switch, and they can control everything in the United States. And I think maybe a lot of these senators and these congressmen, they know that, at will. Israel can make them do anything. Makes you wonder what Epstein was filming, and what happens on these trips to Israel. They have a lot of sex tourism in Israel. A lot of people maybe don't talk about that, but there's an awful lot of that. Matt Gaetz was talking about, a trip to Israel, but he didn't talk about the sex tourism. And obviously these Israelis, they know very well what kind of a tendency a lot of these people have before they even go to Israel. And if they find, they want their weaknesses. And that's one reason why they were going through Matt Gaetz' things in his hotel room, and he unexpectedly went back to his hotel room and caught them. And they said, well, we work for the hotel, and it wasn't. It was actually, obviously, their Mossad or Shin Bet, or probably the Shin Bet. I think Shin Bet operates within Israel, and the Mossad is mostly just like the CIA. Shin Bet is FBI. They got rid of the other one, which was to steal nuclear secrets, because they got all the nuclear secrets they need, apparently, and maybe, through, what's his name, a lot of it, Jonathan Pollard, and, just wanted to see what this is. I don't know what this is, to be honest with you. What is that? Anyway, just walking around, stretching out this video. Oh, I got to end it. It's already over an hour. But anyway, this is all just a big scam, because, whether they recognize a Palestinian state or not, what does that do? Nothing whatsoever. And if it goes to the United Nations, if it does, well, what's going to happen there? Well, the United States is going to veto it. It's never going to fly. It's just not going to work, unless you take it to the General Assembly. But they're going to need a lot of countries, and there's a lot of ways to sabotage that. The United States has a lot of control. They basically run the United Nations, obviously, and Donald Trump is going to use tariffs and all sorts of stuff. Matter of fact, he's already using tariffs. If you recognize a Palestinian state, you're going to get tariff to this and tariff to that. Donald Trump, Mr. Tariff. Maybe they should call him Tariff Trump, I guess. I don't know. That's his real name, apparently. There's a white cedar. I never really consider them as being a cedar, but they are cedars anyway. But anyhow, let's see. It's going to be dead on arrival, and that's actually about all I have to say today. And so, everybody, thanks for joining me. And I'm going to go through the woods here. I already told you my joke about the pedophile, going through the woods with a little girl. I mean, a real bad pedophile. It was getting dark, as you know. He's got this little girl with him, and the little girl starts to get afraid of all of the trees and the darkness and all of this. It says, Mr. I'm scared. And he says, I'm scared too. But think of me. I have to leave here alone. So anyway, that's not a good joke, I guess. I hope nobody lost their kids to some pedophile in America and all that. But anyway, so that's it for today. I thank you all for joining me. I'll see you on the next one. So bye bye.